Alright guys, Script here with another video. We're talking about the Acolyte episode 5. And I'm not going to say anything yet, I'm just going to get into it. It's not all horrible, but it's not exactly good either. So that's as far as I'm going to take it. So the last episode was called Day, which was super, it just feels lazy, and this one's called Night. Ooh, it's so deep. It's just like, yes, we get it. There's white and there's black, and there's night and there's day, and there's, you know, apples and oranges, and there's, and they're twins, and they're the opposite, but not. So it opens with Osha waking up after being force-flicked away by the Gimp Mask Sith. And this whole ending last week's episode, right as the fight begins, was not a bright choice, in my opinion. Like, have a cliffhanger that has to do with the story, not right in the middle of an action sequence, because it can only take away from that sequence. And again, I just feel like it was just, they're trying to get 8 episodes. They can't think of anything more than really 15 or so minutes per episode, and then so they have to cut them off and create interest, and there's not a lot of, the series isn't flowing very well. It's just off, you know? And I think it's because, again, they don't have enough content, so they have to drag things out and slow things down too much, and then speed things up too much, and then cut in the middle of an action sequence to create interest, because it's just, the flow is so all over the place with this. And I know they re-edited it a bunch of times from the rumors I've heard. I don't know, I guess they're rumors, but anyway. So that's where we are. And then she sees the Gimp Mask guy killing all the Jedi. There's like 10 of them, so this is just way too overpowered, this guy. He's more powerful than Palpatine. Making him more powerful than Palpatine is not going to go over well with fans. In fact, even Palps killing the Jedi in Revenge of the Sith so easily was a little much, in my opinion. I thought there should have been at least a bit of a fight. Apparently they did film one, but in the end, George just he just jumps up, like, making his weird face and just stabbing everybody, which was a little too much even for him. I also wish they would have done more with the lighting. It's just like all the rest of the Disney Plus shows. They never seem to have much moonlight at night. It's just very dark, and it makes things look kind of cheap. And for an $80 million show, this should be pretty easy to do, right? You should be able to have good moonlight and, you know, shadows and lights and stuff, but they go like the laziest way. And then the fight choreography in this scene is actually pretty decent. So all those people that are like, you're just negative for being negative. No, I'm not. I critique things. It's not that bad. It's decent. It's not amazing, but it's fine. It's not like you're like, oh, this is horrible. And way better than Ahsoka's slow, crappy fight scene. So I actually thought that was pretty decent. And then Osha shoots the Sith with a stun gun, but it doesn't do anything to him. And he starts after her, leaving Yord alive. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, if you get hit with a stun gun, you get hit with a stun gun. Are we saying the Force now, you can absorb the stun? I'm debating that. You guys let me know in the comment section what you think about that. I think that's a little bit, I don't know. I'm not sure about it. It'd be like, well, if you can absorb a stun, could you get to the point in the Force where you could just absorb a blaster shot? Anyway, and then May, who's watching from the inside of the Wookiee's house, the Jedi Wookiee's house, looks for his lightsaber, and she grabs it and leaves. And then we go back to Gimp Sith, and he throws his saber at Osha, but Soul steps in and blocks it. And I'm like, where was Soul while this dude was mowing down all the other Jedi? He's not in that scene. He literally just wasn't there. So I'm like, what the? That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, he just left and then somehow met up with the Gimp guy, and it's like, why wasn't he there? So they leave a lot to, like, you just kind of don't understand why that would be happening. It's really, really weird. And then there's more bad dialogue. It's like, Master Soul, you don't remember me? And then Soul's like, there's something familiar. And it's just corny dialogue, but I'm like, whatever. I'm sure the Sith, 100% sure the Sith is the Oriental guy that I already predicted way before the show came out, and that May just thinks it's some bum. Or I guess I didn't predict it before the show came out. I predicted it, after the premiere. May just thinks he's some bum, I guess, that guy, and so maybe he and Soul are related, and they start fighting, because Soul's like, something's familiar. They never actually deal with it in this episode. But again, they're both Oriental, so maybe there's like a family connection. I don't know, but we'll find out. And then the Ben Shapiro-looking Padawan drop kicks May as she's running to save Osha, and they start fighting. And again, this was less Matrix style than the fight with Trinity. It had a bit of those elements, but it felt way more like a Star Wars or classical sort of confrontation, which I thought was a little better than the just straight up Matrix fighting that Trinity was doing. Trinity from Matrix was doing. And then May is trying to avoid being handcuffed and taken in, and then it cuts back to Soul and Gimp, and the fighting is pretty good. Soul is trying to get the Sith to reveal himself while he getting his butt kicked by him, and then the Padawan ends up cuffing May. So she gets him into cuffs. And then just then, Gimp Sith, who had just disappeared from fighting Soul, attacks her. And this dude is crazy overpowered. Either that or the Jedi that are supposed to be at their peak are actually pretty pathetic. And then the fighting has been pretty well choreographed. But this all just makes the Jedi look bummy. Like, then the Gimp is like, May, you can learn from this Padawan. She's a loyal pupil. The dialogue is very wooden, very bland, and the fact that they made this guy so powerful, it actually kind of makes the Jedi look like bums. There needed to be more of a balance. He can't be that over-the-top powerful. It just doesn't... It just makes the Jedi look crappy. And then Gimp does this move where he kind of blocks lightsabers with his hands, it looks like. And then they malfunction for a few seconds before turning back on again. And he did it earlier as well. And I don't know how I feel about that. You can see it here. She's got another saber from May. The one May stole from the Wookiee Jedi. I don't know. Like, he just kind of like puts his hand up and then like their sabers just go out. Like, is that a new force power? What is that? I'm not necessarily against it. But again, it's pretty OP considering this is like pre-Palpatine, what we've seen from Sith. And I feel like the Sith have enough extras, like the lightning and everything else. I don't know that they need more of this. So it kind of looks cool in like a fighting way, but in a lore way, I'm like, again, this is a prequel. And then May runs away, and then the fighting gets corny and just spins and stuff for no reason. And then Gimp Sith cuts one of her sabers and then disappears. And I'm not going to lie, despite the Gimp mask, I like the way he sneaks in and out and messes with the Jedi, but it's still really stupid that the Jedi are all spread out. Again, where was Soul when the other Jedi were being killed? Like, he just was gone for no reason. Oh, it doesn't make sense. And how is it taking so long for Yord to get Osha to the ship, or even out of the forest? They're still in the forest, when last episode much of the way was across huge fields. Gimp catches up to May somehow and tries to kill her, but Ben Shapiro and Soul get in the way. And he keeps attempting to kill her, and they keep fighting him, and the fighting is still okay. It's getting worse slowly, but at one point the Padawan could have easily stabbed him and then just kicked him instead. And you're like, why didn't you just... So it's going downhill. Again, the beginning, the fighting, I liked it, and it's starting to go downhill. It's declining from the first few minutes on. And then Osha decides they need to use the giant bugs to deal with the Gimp. So she shines her flashlight, and her and Yord run, and they follow them back. And Yord was like super intense about them going back to the ship earlier in the episode, but then just changes his mind like instantly. Like, there's no pushback at all. It was just like, yeah, okay, we're going back now, even though I literally said I didn't want to do this, and we've talked about this already. It was just like way too easy. Again, the number one problem with the show is the dialogue is dog do. It's just, there's no depth to it. It's so surfacey. And then back at the fight, the Gimp snaps his lightsaber into two and kills the Padawan. Or does he? I don't know. Maybe she lives, right? Maybe he didn't hit any major organs, right? Some of you guys that claim that Sabine living, it makes sense, and Reva living makes sense after getting stabbed twice. Like, is she actually dead? Is she the Acolyte? She's actually dead? I don't know. And as far as like the mod on his saber, like his ability to sort of snap it and then have two, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. It's similar to any kind of advantage a Sith would want to use. I don't like Jedi doing that, but I like the Sith using those types of, like, going for those types of advantages. And I didn't mind that. So that was the big, like, oh, there was the lightsaber whip, which I think is ridiculous. But then Headland said there was another type of saber mod, and that was, I guess, it. And I hate the whip. The whip is ridiculous. I don't care if it was in the EU, even though it wasn't really the way they did it. It was different, but this is okay. I'm okay with this. nothing wrong with it at all as far as I'm concerned. And then we see his face, and yes, it's the somewhat goofy guy May was with, of course, Jan, that we all knew, I predicted, millions of other people predicted. It's not horrible. It was just so predictable. That's the only problem with it. I don't even mind that. I don't mind that he was kind of the guy who seemed like he was a goofball and a wimp, but he's really not. I like that there was that manipulation part of it, but it was just so predictable. And then Buddy chokes May and mocks her, not realizing who he was. Like, he's mocking May for spending all this time with him, not realizing he was the Sith Lord. And I'm like, bro, that's on you. She's your apprentice. You're the one who's not teaching her, like, how to be aware and stuff. And then he puts a saber to her head, so Sol has to back off, and Sol asks him what he is, and he says, a Sith. Like, guys, like, all these people on Twitter are like, no, he's not. It's like, do you pay attention? Of course he is. And I appreciate that at least they're calling him a Sith, even though I think this is going to totally destroy lore, because they do all these characters that are exactly like Sith, but they just don't take the title of Sith. And so then people are like, oh, see, he's not a Sith. It's like, that's not creative. That's not creative. Just writing a character like Shin Hati or Balin that's literally just doing everything Sith do, lightsabers, everything else, but they're not Sith. It's like, that's not creative. They're not writing a new villain. They're writing the same old villain that they've always written, and then just saying they're not a Sith. It's just stupid. It's like they're just lazy writers, but at least they're admitting he's a Sith, even though it's probably going to break lore. At least they're admitting that they're doing the same thing they always do, instead of pretending they're doing something new and edgy when it's literally like exactly like a Sith. They enter a ship and stab all the New Republic guys and do everything Sith do. So anyway, it's going to break lore, but at least they're being honest about it instead of trying to placate to me like I'm some pedestrian dumb guy that doesn't realize Balin is basically just a Sith without the title. And so is Shin. Anyway, he goes on to explain how now that they have seen his face, he must kill everyone. Okay. Many of us said he would have to do that before they can transmit to the Jedi that there is a Sith. So my whole thing is, okay, as long as he kills all these people and they don't get back to the ship and they can't transmit who this dude is, now that he's said he's a Sith, you know what? It's not lore breaking at that point. You know? It just isn't. So he's going to have to kill them all. So maybe he will. He's crazy, overpowered, so maybe he could. I can't stand how weak he makes the Jedi look, though. Like, then Yord shows up, like, he just mows them down. And then Yord shows up and recognizes him. He quickly snaps his neck. So he obviously was a Jedi at one time. And then he and Sol fight hand-to-hand because they don't have lightsabers. I can't even remember why, whatever. Again, kind of Matrix-y, but not so overt, so it's not too bad. And then Sol takes him and is about to kill him and with a lightsaber, and Osha's like, no! And it's another Mace Windu Anakin type deal, so kind of copying. They're trying to make Osha and May like kind of like chosen ones, mixing in all these different things, like Luke, oh, I want to go with the Jedi, and then he's going to kill him, and then Osha's like, no, and it's I don't know. They just shouldn't have even made this show. And then in a super anticlimactic way, Osha sticks the light from her droid on Buddy's back, the Gimp guy, and then the big bugs from before carry him away. It's just a lame way to end the fight, and we aren't shown if he dies or not at this point, but he probably doesn't, and it's a corny way to end the fight, man. Like, some bugs? I guess that's all they could do. He was so OP. Certainly Sol can't take him. The Jedi can't beat him because they made him just ridiculously OP. So anyway, during the final moments, Gimp tells Osa she couldn't trust Sol. And after Gimp is gone, she asks Sol why. And he says he will explain, and then May stuns him. So obviously something more happened with the witches, but I fear it's going to be something that makes the Jedi garbage, so that leaves May and Osha alone at that point. And yeah, I think something happened, and that's why that place burned down, and it's going to make the Jedi look like pieces of crap, so that, you know, they're blurring the lines between good and evil, which is, again, totally counter to Star Wars and the most base level storytelling that George has conveyed in so many interviews. They're countless, that it's good versus evil, but anyways, these people don't care because they're all about, like, not good and evil, and your morality is your morality, and my morality is my morality, which, of course, leads to totalitarian regimes that say it's okay to murder an entire group of people because our morality is our morality, and their morality is their morality, and there isn't some overarching good and bad. Anyways, moving on. Then we get an argument between Osha and May still sees herself as a victim. And Osha is like, you burned down everything. And May is like, the Jedi are bad, but never actually says why, other than they came back and took Osha, even though the Jedi literally made it a choice in the flashback. So right now you're still like, May, your motivation is still just your mental illness because you still don't realize that you literally killed everybody. And she doesn't say she didn't. She doesn't say, oh no, the Jedi did this. She doesn't like defend herself. So you're, as the viewer, you're like, okay, like, so you're just nuts. So the main conflict is still paper thin between the twins. It just feels fake and forced. And then it's followed by May force pushing Osha. And then we see her on the ground. And I guess she bonked her head, but we don't see that. Like, it's her being knocked out is very important to the scene. But they don't actually show her getting knocked out. They just show her on the ground. And you're like, okay, like 180 million. Sure. And you need runtime. Add a few seconds. No. So again, it's just poorly done. And then May does what looks like ultra cringe. Cutting her hair to look like Osha, but she uses a lightsaber. I'm like, you're gonna cut your face. It's so corny. It's just cheese that she does this. And she has knives. I know she does because she just used one earlier in the episode on the Ben Shapiro chick. So she definitely has knives. Like, what the heck is going on here? Why did she put a lightsaber like a centimeter from her chest and then that was super cheese. There's certain things that like I think these directors and writers think look good, but they actually don't. They're super corny and lame. And they need to focus on the story and stop focusing on these shots. You know, it's like the shot of Lando arriving with like the 50 billion supposed rebels in The Rise of Skywalker, and you're like, okay, cool, you got this cool shot of all these ships coming out of hyperspace, yay, but there's no way Lando could have recruited all these people in 15 hours, so it's just super dumb. And they don't think we're going to think of that. Anyway, this was super dumb. She should have just used the blades. It would have actually looked cooler. You could have had like an intense scene where she's cutting off all her hair and she's like, I'm going to be Osha, screw these guys. No, it's just she does this little swoop. It's corny. And then it also looks like super unnecessary and dangerous. Like it's super dangerous. And then we see Gimp alive. Okay, yeah, we've been predictable. And May poses as Osha to Sol, and then they leave. And it's just kind of weird that Sol can't sense anything. Like, he didn't even make, like, a face. Like, he didn't even, like, kind of stop for a second and be like, He just kind of just keeps walking, and you're kind of like, wait a sec, dude. Like, what? Like, you should be able to sense May is bad. She's the apprentice to the Sith. But anyways, then Sol and May go back to the ship. So I guess Sol can now transmit that there is a Sith, seeing that Buddy literally told him he was a Sith, so the 1,000 years of no Sith thing has been wrecked. Doesn't it? Isn't it? Or is he not going to send the signal and talk about it, and then it's even dumber? So now he's either going to tell the people at Coruscant what he saw, or he's not going to, and then it's even dumber. So it either breaks lore, or it's totally stupid. Or they're going to be like, oh, the ship's broken. We can't transmit a signal. From what? From what? Nothing happened. Right? They just landed. So, there's only two options. Either lore break, he doesn't say anything, and he's a complete idiot. Okay, so no, there's multiple options. Either Sol doesn't say that he saw a Sith, so he just doesn't say anything. Who knows why? Which is going to be dumb. Or the ship can't transmit a signal, which doesn't make any sense. Or he does tell what he saw, and it now is lore breaking. Unless this guy literally kills every single Jedi on Coruscant. This Gimp guy. So I don't know where they're going to go from here. I mean, maybe they're going to be like, oh, he doesn't want to tell them because that's his son. Maybe that's where they're going to go. Like I was saying earlier, maybe they're related. Okay, that might possibly work. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. It's got some dumb stuff in this episode. Anyways, and then it appears the Gimp Sith heals May. I think it's pretty obvious, which, again, I predicted there'd be healing in the show months ago on Twitter. It's not because I'm special. It's not because I'm anything. It's because I know how these people think, and it's just anything they can use to try to hype stuff. It would have been far more interesting if he didn't have healing, and then they had to deal with her injury, because that would make for a more interesting story and provide a flaw in her that she has to deal with and something he has to deal with. No, it's just he heals her because healing's cool. Ray did it. Remember Ray? Remember Barry? Anyway, I just don't know how they're going to fix some of these issues. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Either way, this episode wasn't absolutely horrible like the other ones. It still sucks, but it's not like a total train wreck. I did like some of the fighting, as I mentioned. The acting is wooden. Other than Soul, it's pretty bad. And even the Gimp guy, he's not too bad when he got his mask off. He's okay. The rest of the acting is really bad. And Stenberg is terrible. The guy who plays Yord sucks at acting, in this at least. But anyways, that's the review, guys. It's not very good. It's not absolutely awful, but it's not very good. And it's built on a foundation of basically crap in the previous episodes. So I guess we'll see what happens. I think it's going to break lore. I think they're going to know about the Sith, and it's not going to matter. And they're just going to make the Jedi Council, like Ki-Adi-Mundi and all those guys, just be like covering it up, which makes them look awful. Yay, way to go. Way to go, Jedi. Awesome. And it also takes away from Palpatine, because I always took it as he was just this master manipulator, and that's what made him an awesome character. But they're going to diminish him, I'm sure. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this episode, what you do and don't like about this episode. And if you do like this content, please like, subscribe. Always helps the channel. Feel free to check out anything else on my channel, and have yourselves a really good day.